In a world where Maitland McDonough, First Lady of Horror, speaks, and you have a front row seat. This is Maitland on movies, horror, double feature. That I could dream. I dreamt that I could dream. I dreamt that I could dream.
I'm ready.
So, Maitland, what'd you see this week?
This week, I saw a movie called Resurrection. And one of the first things that occurred to me was, I've seen other movies called Resurrection. So I scooted over and looked it up. And there have been 4 other movies called Resurrection. So clearly it's a popular title.
The title keeps coming back.
It keeps on coming back. It's resurrected one time after another. This resurrection, however, is actually quite different from any of the others I've seen. And it's because this resurrection, first of all, is unbelievably beautiful. I mean, just gorgeous. But it's also a history of the 20th century filtered through movies. So, yeah. So it's quite fascinating. However, the filtering through movies comes because we're in an extremely dystopian future. And a future in which most people have gained eternal life, but the price they had to pay for it is that they stopped dreaming. Apparently it works for them, and wisely, I think, the movie doesn't try to delve too deeply into how precisely that stuff works, because there is no reasonable explanation for it. And plus, that's not really what it's about. What it's about is the rebels against this system, who are called deliriants, which, by the way, is also the term for a whole class of hallucinogenic drugs and natural substances. And they are capable of entering into other people's dreams and stopping some of the things that people are dreaming about.
So this is Kruger versus Highlander.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, the hunters and the deliriants are 2 separate groups of people, but both of them are dealing with the fact that this dreaming culture is becoming extremely problematic. Because if almost everybody is living in a dream, what's happening to the real world? Anyway, this is a movie that's set in multiple sequences. Every one of them is gorgeous, just incredibly beautiful. I mean, the first one is set in the silent era of cinema, and there's a very Nosferatu crossed with Cabinet of Dr. Caligari thing going on. It's shot in black and white, and then it's doctored in post with color washes, which is what filmmakers used to do sometimes back then, because color film really did not exist as a color movie film did not exist as a viable thing at that time. But you could take your black and white film and you could add a single layer of color to it. And if you were more ambitious, you could actually add multiple layers of color, which almost nobody did, but because it was incredibly intensive. And so it's beautiful, first and foremost. It's one of those movies that you really want to look at almost immediately after you first watched it, because it is so absolutely mesmerizing in its beauty.
Beautiful at a distance or immersive? Did you feel in the scenes?
It depends on the segment.
Okay.
So yes, there is a certain immersive quality in some of them. In others, honestly, I just wanted to sit there and look at it. And I really was regretting that I was looking at it on my laptop, not looking at it in a theater where I'm sure it truly was immersive. The thing that I think is most fascinating about it is that it is both incredibly beautiful and deeply dystopian. It's not beautiful in a way that ultimately gives you a really good feeling about things. And its stories are stories that are all about people who are problematic. All of them are looking for something that they don't have in their real lives.
Is
It's,
this anthology-like, the way you say different characters, different settings? Or are we watching like 5 shorts that are cobbled into a movie, or is there a
yes,
through?
we are watching essentially 5 shorts, although cobbled is not the term I would use, because each of them does build on what you
Okay.
saw in the one before as they move forward in history. And obviously part of it is very much about what are the pluses and minuses of truly loving movies. We love movies, clearly.
Yes.
We would not have seen as many as we have, and we would not continue to be seeing as many movies as we see if we didn't love the cinema. But there is also a way in which people can let movies take over their real lives. You don't really want to compare your life to a movie because movies are scripted. Movies have a beginning, a middle, and an end, as indeed do our lives, but we don't see the script.
Yeah.
We're actually living the script. And therefore, that kind of life, it's a deeply vital experience rather than the experience of being a passive viewer.
Yes.
And that's a criticism that has been lobbed at the cinema since the cinema existed. It was that it's a passive experience. You don't interact with movies except on an intellectual level, and that will be on the movie itself.
Respectfully disagree with that view, because if you look at the way fandoms are built and things like that, some movies are very, very interacted with. If you look at things like the Star Wars movies, for example, they have taken on a life of themselves outside of the theater. They have become a baseline, a starting point, and they're very much a shared experience.
And the reason that you're talking about them is because they're the exception to the rule. That world that you
Okay,
see,
I will grant that.
yeah, and the Star Wars series is not the only one, but that's a very, very big one. So it's a really good choice to use as the example. Yes, the Star Wars movies have a fan base that is deeply dedicated to them. All you have to do is go to a Star Wars convention and you
Well, the
can
fact
see.
that there are Star Wars conventions, I mean, yes, the fact that there are some pieces of fantasy in literature, in movies, that have completely transcended the medium, that have become their own thing, that are, as a writer, I always say that once I hand the book to the editor, it's a little bit less mine. Once the editor hands it to the public, it's a little bit less mine,
Mhm.
because there is some level of dialogue that happens, at least if your movie or your book or your what have you asks questions that people resonate with, things that make them think, that connect them to material.
Sure. Or that taps into discontents that they have and perhaps have not given names to, or that are aspirational,
Yep.
that show things that they look at and think, I would actually like to be more like that. And that can go either way. If you want to be a party girl and just, go to parties and cadge drinks and be lauded by the community that you're part of, maybe that's not a great thing because it's not a truly meaningful thing to do with your life. On the other hand, maybe it's making you happy.
Yeah.
And maybe if it makes you happy, that might free up your mind in a way to think of some other things that you'd like to do other than go to clubs 5 times a week or go to conventions. I mean, look,
Or hide out in the movies.
or hide out in the movies. And we have done all those things.
We
Done
have.
hidden out in the movies. Found friends in people who share our love of maybe a particular kind of movie, a genre, a series. Again, Star Wars being a really good example. Also, the Star Trek movies, which was a carryover fandom, to be sure, from the television series, but still,
Yeah.
it is a world that people want to enter. And science fiction clearly is a very good genre for that because you don't run up against the things in movies that are sometimes not really like life as you experience it, and probably aren't like life as you could experience it. They're idealized.
That old quote, we're all interested in the future because we all plan on living there.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Now, the odds that it's going to be the future where I could be even an ensign on the Enterprise, yeah, no, not going to live to see that future. But they offer possibilities and a way to channel both the things that you long for, the things that maybe you haven't even identified are things you want. Although, again, something like Star Wars is like every Western where we got to get a bunch of people together because we have to do something. We have to break new ground for a new town. We have to deal with the ruthless bad guys who are killing people and taking their property and generally making life a misery. But science fiction can be very aspirational.
Yeah.
Plus, look, guys love the gadgets, right? That's a great appeal for men. Just the weapons of the future.
I personally don't use technology, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, you can see the appeal of saying, oh, I could just go push that button and that whatever is inside there is going to make exactly the chicken and vegetables dinner that I want. And it's going to be exactly the way I want it because I can program it and tell it this much flavoring, this much cooking. That just looks great. Although, of course, we've all seen our share of dystopian future movies in which precisely that thing that looks so desirable becomes the thing that enslaves people because it takes away their desire to do for themselves. And generation after generation, they finally lose this idea that there is a great satisfaction in doing things yourself rather than saying a computer or Robbie Robot over there, do this thing so I don't have to do it. So, and that's something science fiction just always has to deal with. Resurrection, however, is going completely for a more metaphysical thing. It's going to go for it goes for what we have done to our heads by allowing too many things to be done for us. It's not a movie that you come out of thinking, wow, that was a lot of fun, because it's not.
Yeah. But it's a thinker.
It's a thinker. It's a movie you come out of thinking about not only the issues that it raises, because the whole reason it raises issues is because they're things that people think about, but that it is extremely beautiful and extremely carefully done. Often with movies that are set in any kind of world that doesn't really exist, fall down on not realizing it quite fully enough, because that realization isn't just a matter of we got the best set decorator, we got the best armorers to create tools and weapons, we got the best of everything there. But if you don't actually have a story and populate it with actors who can bring emotional depth to it, it's going to be one of those things that you're going to go to it. And if you're 19 years old and you're seeing Star Wars for the first time, it's going to look like the greatest thing you ever saw.
Yeah.
But even if you love that movie your whole life, because it's deeply connected to a really great experience you had at a time when you were coming into your adult life, you are going to realize that there are movies that are willing to dig more deeply into what the future could be, for better or worse. I mean, look, Soylent Green. Soylent Green is a great movie.
A phenomenal movie.
And it's got one of the best reveals.
It does. You've used the word beautiful a bunch of times, but it sounds like from everything else you're saying, it's also really well directed, well acted, well scripted, that this is a well-designed movie in every sense of the word.
Absolutely. All of the things that should go into making a great movie are there. There are wonderful performances. There is a great underlying concept. It is beautifully designed. But you know what? It's not Star Wars. It's not fun for every second. There are parts of it that are slower because it's a contemplative movie, which I would say Star Wars is not. There's not a lot of, there is a fair amount of discussion in the Star Wars films about morality and responsibility and things of that kind. But I would not call any of the Star Wars movies contemplative. Because mostly
they're more actioners. Yeah.
They're actioners, and they want to keep you watching the screen and not going off onto maybe a train of thought of your own because you just had a really difficult proposition about what the future is and how it got that way and what that might for the way in which the real world could go. That's not what you want out of the movies. Soylent Green hits you with those in a really big.
From the strawberries at the beginning all the way through. It sets a tone very, very, very clearly. It has some of the weirdest casting choices I've ever seen.
What do you think is the weirdest?
Edward G. Robinson, the fact that he fit into that movie at all kind of impresses me. It's like I go see my mom once a week, and they have somebody who comes in and talks about movies, and they'll talk about Carousel, and they'll just look at you and go, Rod Steiger in a musical. Just stop dead for a moment. It's like, it worked, but nobody was sitting there going, who the obvious choice is for a musical? Rod Steiger. And it's the same thing here. The obvious choice, of course, the people we need in this movie. Charlton Heston at least was doing some sci-fi stuff, but the guy we absolutely need right over here to sell this is Edward G. Robinson, because no one says science fiction like Edward G. Robinson.
Yes, exactly.
It's a wonderfully bizarre casting choice that really, really pays off.
Yeah, and that's where you just give points to first the person who proposed, Edward G. Robinson. I wonder what he's up to right now. Yeah. And then the people who eventually thought, sure, the squat little tough talking gangster. Yeah, you know what? I can see how that could work and how that would be really interesting. And apparently Edward G. Robinson thought so too, because otherwise he wouldn't have been there. He didn't have to be.
It's always good when you see an actor who knows how to play against type effectively, how to really make that work.
Especially if there's somebody from whom you don't expect it, because you haven't seen them in a wide variety of roles. They have largely, as actors do, stuck to the thing that, first of all, they know they do well, and second, gotten the offers that are made by people who have seen them do that thing they do well and thought, oh, who would be perfect here?
It becomes branding. I mean, I have the luxury as an author, I can publish under a pen name if I want to separate brand. But if it's my face, it's my face. And if the whole point is for my face to be recognizable, there's not a lot of things you can do to make yourself two different actors.
No, there just aren't. Even if you actually are versatile and you're capable of doing things. The trouble for a lot of actors is they do one movie where they're great. And what do they get offered, or what goes to their agents to?
Oh, absolutely. And then you get things like, who was it, Fatboy Slim's video, Weapon of Choice, where Christopher Walken reminds you that he was trained as a dancer, thing you've never seen him do in any movie before.
Yeah. You read that he's talked about it, and you may have noted that he is actually quite graceful. But and then it's like, oh my God, he actually can dance.
So bringing it back around to this movie, these are actors we should expect to see more from, a director we expect to see more from, a writer we expect to see more from?
I would say all of the above, because this is a movie that could have failed in so many ways. And especially we who go to science fiction movies, have seen movies that just fall down, even though you can see there's a good idea there. And there's some good performances there, and it's certainly competently directed, because it's pretty hard to see a mainstream movie in the 21st century that is not competently directed. Independent movies, that can go differently, because there isn't the amount of structure that's already built into the filmmaking process that you get when you're making a mainstream studio movie. There's a world of people out there you can hire to do all the things that need to be done to make that movie work.
To do it. Yeah.
And you need a budget to do it. Yeah, you have to have your money. But once you have that, the talent is out there, and you know who they are. And if you don't, you go ask somebody else that you know in the industry and say, you know, I'm not sure about this thing I need. Do you have any thoughts about it after you've talked out what it is? And yeah, there's probably somebody in your industry whom you know, or who's a friend of yours, a friend of a friend, who can tell you, oh, you know what, I saw this guy, or I saw this woman, and I think that's the person you want. Or I saw this young set designer and he worked on this indie film and it was amazing looking. I didn't even love the movie, but it was amazing looking.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you should look into getting that person. Because the movie industry is a movie where people know each other, a place where people know each other.
Yeah.
Let me just say that again. The movie industry is an industry in which people know each other. Yes, a lot of people work in it, but when it comes down to the people who have real experience in it, they mostly meet each other. They talk to each other. They see each other at awards ceremonies. They're aware of what they're doing, what other people are doing. It's a talent.
You run into that in music also. Every now and then you'll hear these casual conversations about this person was with this person hanging out for 16 hours recording music, and you're like, what? The one that blew my mind was I heard an interview one time. They were talking about Peter Tork from the Monkees, and about when the Monkees had Jimi Hendrix open for them. And the story is basically Jimi Hendrix shows up at Peter Tork's house one day and says, let's play. And he says the thing about Tork was that he could play for hours on end and not miss a note. So he would say, Hendrix would say, I'm going to give you this note, and Tork would stay with it, and Hendrix would literally just wander around him with a guitar, playing and riffing and improvising, going, okay, now take it to this note, and would do the same thing, and would basically treat Tork as the heartbeat of the song. You're going to keep everything completely stable and allow me to be free to do what I'm doing. And I'm hearing this and going, Peter Tork.
Those are the two words that keep going through your head. Peter.
Yes.
Peter
but yes,
Tork.
the world is a much smaller place than you might realize, and it is always fascinating. I have a friend from high school who became a studio engineer and a studio musician, and every now and then he'll like post pictures of him hanging out with Todd Rundgren on his couch. He'll tell the story about how he met Barbara Eden and the times he spent hanging out with Carol Burnett, and then he'll just start posting pictures of famous actors, and it's not a picture. It's 5 or 6 different times he spent time with them out of possibly hundreds. And, you know, the world is a much smaller place in the strangest of ways.
Particularly if you're in a particular industry. I mean, I worked in the dance world for a long time. There are a lot of people in the dance world, but it's still a smaller world than you would think. And you may not know everybody well, but you run into them. You run into people who don't work anywhere near where you work, but you're part of a world.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing.
Oh, absolutely. And bringing it back around to this, so we're giving this a gigantic and unqualified thumbs up.
I would give this an unqualified thumbs up. It is not a movie for everybody, for sure. And there are people who are going to go see this who would disagree with me completely. But for me, it was just a fascinating movie that was willing to take chances that might not be things that somebody would look at and say, yeah, that's what I want to see. Or, oh, of course, that's the way that should have been done. But that's the best thing about it.
Very good. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. And you can see Maitland here, and you can also see her on her Substack.
Which is maitlandonmovies.substack.com.
Thank you, Frank. We'll see you all next week.
See you all next week.
On behalf of Maitland McDonough and myself, Charles Baruch, we wish you nothing but happy dreams.